Very much, Mr. Speaker. After his inept and failed coup against the Prime Minister last week, Anna Sarwar announced Labour's Scottish new campaign slogan. It wasn't "into the abyss," it was rather the inspiring "hold your nose and vote Labour." But with the stench of the Mandelson scandal still in our nostrils, and the stink still emanating in the Labour Together affair, and just the general whiff of rot hanging over this doomed Prime Minister after his hammering at Gorton and Denton, isn't it the case for Scottish voters that some smells are simply too unpleasant to ignore?
Prime Minister.
Anna Sarwar has been asking his party to be honest about the political pressure they applied at the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital and taking the action that's needed to reassure patients and families. This scandal shows how much Scotland deserves change with Anna Sarwar.
Mr. Speaker, can I associate myself and my colleagues with the Prime Minister and his remarks around Sarah Everard and Iran? Mr. Speaker, my colleagues and I support our armed forces, but we lament how diminished the UK appears over the last week amongst our allies and within the Middle East. The Prime Minister is not responsible for our armed forces being able to squeeze into Wembley Park and to Ibrox, but he is responsible for our posture. He is responsible for ignoring the request to deploy a Type 45 destroyer 2 weeks ago into the region. And we now learn that HMS Dragon will not leave, hasn't left, and won't be in to defend Cyprus for over a week. Will the Prime Minister understand that I welcome the commitment for increased defence spending, but if we're only planning to get to 2.5% by 2027, it's not enough. It needs to be reconsidered. He needs to go faster where others before him did not. And he needs to take these steps not just for protection of our values across the world, but also for the protection of our consumers who are impacted by this conflict today.
Minister.
Well, he'd have heard me set out what we did by way of pre-deployment, working in conjunction with and liaising with the US so that he understands the context in which those pre-deployments were put in place, and I think they speak for themselves as to why they were put in place in the places that they were. In relation to defence spend, obviously we're increasing it to 2.6% of GDP. That's £270 billion over the Parliament. But as I said in the speech I gave in Munich just a couple of weeks ago, we're going to have to spend more and faster after the years of underinvestment and troop cuts. They were the ones that hollowed this out. They were the ones that reduced the size of the army. They were the ones that didn't spend what was necessary on defence. Like everything else they left in such a mess, we're clearing it up. Through our strategic defence review, we'll make Britain safer.
Mr. Speaker, the United States of America is our most important international strategic ally. Does the Prime Minister believe that his dithering and equivocal response to events in the Middle East this week has made that relationship stronger or weaker?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the American planes are operating out of British bases. That is the special relationship in action. British jets are shooting down drones and missiles to protect American lives in the Middle East on our joint bases. That is the special relationship in action. Sharing intelligence every day to keep our people safe. That is the special relationship in action. Hanging on to President Trump's latest words is not the special relationship.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's proposed terms of reference for the inquiry into rape and grooming gangs are fatally flawed, as victims and survivors have pointed out. They won't address the role that race and religion played in motivating these crimes. They won't lead to prosecutions for those involved in the cover-up. And they won't even investigate all cases, only a select few. The consultation on these terms ends this Friday. If enough people call for changes, including through groomingangjustice.uk, will the Prime Minister please assure us that the final terms of reference will reflect these concerns?
Baroness Longfield is now beginning the work of the inquiry, with victims and survivors at the heart of the process. Under this government, convictions that are at their highest level ever. We're introducing mandatory reporting on child sexual abuse and putting a legal duty on police to collect ethnicity data. But forgive me, if I don't take suggestions from the honourable member who said people legally and settled here should go home to ensure that the UK is culturally coherent. That is a grotesque way to talk about our friends and neighbours, and I rather suspect that her next question will come from her sitting up there.
Point for order, Katie Lamb.
The Prime Minister has On a point of order, Mr. Speaker, I believe the Prime Minister has inadvertently misled the House. I seek your guidance on how to get him to correct the record for claiming I said something I in fact did not.
We can't continue the debate. What I can say is quite rightly you've put your view down, but I'm not responsible for the Prime Minister's answers. If inadvertently it wasn't right, it is up to the individual to correct it. Sir Ed Davey, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks on Sarah Everard and the need to do far more to tackle violence against women and girls? And can I also associate myself with the Prime Minister's remarks on Iran, as we rightly debate how to make tax exiles pay their fair share? It is absolutely right that the government does everything it can to get all British citizens to safety. Mr. Speaker, experts are warning that families could see their energy bills rise by £500 a year as a result of Trump's illegal war. But millions of families and pensioners are already struggling to keep their heads above water thanks to years of a cost of living crisis. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he and I campaigned for months to get the Conservatives to act on energy bills. This time, will the Prime Minister save families that anxiety and give a cast iron guarantee today that he will not let energy bills rise by £500 this year?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this, because I know this will be a concern to the public who are watching what's going on and very concerned about the impact it will have on their lives. It is important that I emphasise the actions we've been taken urgently this week with our allies, with the energy agencies across the world, and the work we're doing to make sure there's safe passage for energy across the world. We will continue to do that. I was glad that we were able to bring energy price, bills down by £150 announced just the other day. We will keep a very close eye on this. I do know how important it is for the British public.
Sir Ed Davey.
Well, I thank the Prime Minister for his reply, but I hope he will act if energy bills do go up by £500. Mr. Speaker, Donald Trump's war on Iran has not only brought more chaos across the Middle East, it's increased the threat to our national security here at home. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has previously plotted several failed terrorist attacks in the UK, targeting Iranian journalists, British Jews, and members of this House. Now they are more desperate and dangerous than ever. We've called for the IRGC to be prescribed as terrorists for years. The last government failed to do it, and so has his. So will the Prime Minister table emergency legislation to better protect our country from Iranian terrorists? Will he do it this week?
Prime Minister.
Can I just, again, thank you for raising this. It is very important, I say to the House, that as he would, and the House would expect, we are working 24/7 on dealing with any threats to this country. And I spoke on Monday about the 20 Iran-backed threats that we had successfully dealt with, and we continue to do so, and we're working on it 24/7. So it's important that I say that. In relation to the IRGC, obviously we've put in place a number of sanctions already. We don't comment on prescription, but we have made the case that there needs to be legislation to deal with state-backed terrorist groups, and we're looking into that.
Sam Richmond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The surge in the global cost of oil and gas has the risk of pushing up food and energy prices, which is a real concern for my constituents in Bishop Auckland, just as we're turning a corner on the cost of living crisis. Doesn't this show the importance of ignoring the parties opposite and investing in secure, renewable energy that we control, and backing our farmers to produce the food for our nation, such as those that I'm hosting here today from County Durham, Mr Speaker? And will the Prime Minister ensure that both energy and food security are a core mission of this Labour government?
Prime Minister.
Well, his energy security is critical to food security, and the sprint to clean energy is the only way to get off the volatile international fossil fuel markets, cut bills and deliver energy security. And Mr Speaker, since we came into office, over £90 billion of investment into clean energy industry has come in, powering millions of homes. Tories and Reform would throw all that away and cling to the failed policy that put everyone's bills up throughout their reign.
Gavin Robertson.